Last summer, I stopped sitting outside.
Not because I was too tired, not because the weather was bad, because mosquitoes had taken over my little yard. And what bothered me most was not just the bites. It was that every solution I found seemed to come with a warning. Spray this, fog that, kill everything. But I still had honeybees on my flowers, birds in the bath, and my neighbor's little dog near the fence. So I had to ask myself a simple question. Can you really get rid of mosquitoes without poisoning the peaceful little life around your home?
That is what I tried to find out. I used to think mosquitoes were just part of summer. You open the back door, sit outside with a cup of tea, and after a few minutes, they find you. Not one mosquito, not two, a whole little crowd of them, as if they had been waiting. And there I would be, slapping my ankles, waving a hand near my ear, trying to enjoy a quiet evening, and losing patience with something so small. At my age, I do not ask for much. A comfortable chair, some fresh air, a little bird song before the sun goes down. But last summer, I stopped sitting outside altogether. That is how bad it became. Clear the whole yard. Kill everything. Then I would look at the honeybees moving around my lavender. I would see my neighbor's little dog sniffing along the fence. And I kept thinking, no, I do not want to fix one problem by starting another one. So I did what pensioners often do. I slowed down. I looked properly. And I started with the simple thing people forget: water. Mosquitoes do not come from nowhere. They need standing water to breed. And it does not have to be a pond or some swampy corner. It can be something much smaller. A plant saucer, a clogged gutter, an old bucket behind the shed, the bottom of a watering can. One morning, I walked around my little yard in my house slippers with a cup of tea in my hand. I honestly thought there would be nothing to find. Then I found it. A flower pot saucer full of rainwater. A plastic lid near the fence. A small dip in an old tarp. The bird bath water that I had not changed for a few days. That was my first lesson. You do not need a messy yard to have mosquitoes. You only need a few forgotten inches of water sitting somewhere out of sight. So every few days now, I do what I call my mosquito walk. I tip out the saucers, I rinse the bird bath, I look behind the bins, I check the places where water can hide without looking like much. And after a couple of weeks, I noticed something. There were fewer mosquitoes before I had bought anything at all. But there was still one part I could not solve just by tipping things over. Some water cannot always be emptied. Maybe you have a rain barrel. Maybe you have a pond. Maybe there is a drainage spot near your home that stays damp after a storm. That is when I learned about mosquito dunks, or bits, made with BTI. Now, I am not a scientist, and I am not going to pretend I am. But
BTI is used to target mosquito larvae in standing water before they grow into biting adults. The EPA says BTI can be used around homes and places where water collects, such as flower pots and bird baths. The CDC says larvicides, when used according to the label instructions, do not harm
People, pets, or the environment. That is the part I paid attention to. Because the aim is not to poison the garden. The aim is to stop mosquitoes before they become mosquitoes. Those are not the same thing. I put a small piece where it was needed, following the label, and left the bees alone. No fogging the flowers, no spraying the lavender, no mist drifting across the yard. Just a quiet little fix in the water where mosquitoes were beginning their life. And that is where I realized I had been thinking about the problem the wrong way. I used to think the adult mosquitoes were the whole battle. But by the time they are flying around your face, you are already late. The real work starts before they fly. That is why emptying water and treating only the standing water that cannot be removed makes more sense than chasing them around with sprays. And please be careful with yard sprays that promise to wipe everything out.
Some mosquito sprays can also harm pollinators, like bees and butterflies, especially if they are sprayed on flowering plants or used carelessly. Source reduction, which means removing standing water, is one of the most pollinator-friendly ways to control mosquitoes. These days, I keep it simple. Every Sunday morning, I check the yard. If it rains, I check again. I keep the grass trimmed near the place where I sit. I move anything that collects water. I clean the bird bath. And for water I cannot remove, I use a mosquito larvicide, exactly the way the label says. Not more, not stronger, not just in case. At my age, you learn that more is not always better. Careful is often better. And now I can sit outside again. I still see bees on the flowers. The neighbor's little dog still wanders near the fence. The birds still come to the bath. But I am not being eaten alive before I finish my tea. That feels like a small victory. And small victories matter when you live on your own. Your home should not feel like a place you hide inside. Your garden, your balcony, your porch, even one little back step should still belong to you. So before spending money on sprays, machines, gadgets, and big promises, I would start with the ordinary thing. Walk around slowly, look for water, tip it out, clean what needs cleaning, treat only what cannot be emptied, and try to protect the good creatures while dealing with the ones causing trouble. Because I do not want a dead garden. I want a peaceful one. A place with fewer mosquitoes, yes, but still with bees, birds, and life moving through it. And if this old pensioner can take back her evenings with a few simple habits, maybe you can too. Tonight, I will sit outside with my tea again. And this time, I intend to finish the whole cup. I suppose that is what I have learned from all of this. Sometimes the answer is not something big or expensive.
Sometimes it is just walking around slowly, looking at what is.
Have mosquitoes been ruining your evenings too? And what simple method has worked for you without harming the bees, birds, pets, or other life around your home? Thank you for spending a few quiet minutes with me today. If you have your own safe way of keeping mosquitoes away, please share it in the comments. It may help someone else enjoy their evenings again too.
And don't forget to subscribe.